Oh, where to start?
Hey, I'm Christian Thatcher. I'm a senior associate here at Fifth Wall on the climate tech team. And today, our climate team is going to be going over some of the most viral videos on YouTube on climate.
I'm Peter Gajdos. I'm the co-head of the Climate Tech Fund here at Fifth Wall. I've been doing climate investing for over 15 years. I'm mostly focusing on investments in energy, so renewables, hydrogen, solar, batteries, energy efficiency.
Hi, I'm Greg, and I co-lead the climate investing practice here at Fifth Wall. And prior to this, I ran climate investing for BMW. And before that, I was head of finance and operations at two of Elon Musk's companies, The Boring Company and Neuralink.
Hey, I'm Cedric Char. I'm a senior associate on the climate tech team.
Hi, I'm Jean, and I'm an associate on the team.
Press start and see what.
Just press play here.
Yep.
The Europeans have discovered that the real threat to human civilization is not global warming. The real threat to people is global cooling, otherwise known as winter. Far more people freeze to death every year than die of heat. So when temperatures in Europe begin to drop a few months from now, this is a huge problem. And that will be obvious to everyone. It's not global warming, it's global cooling. That's what's going to kill your grandmother.
Yeah, this one's an interesting take. Tucker is going into the effects of the Ukraine crisis and how people are going to be without power this winter. You know, it's like he's pinning you against, you know, do you choose your children or you choose your grandma? That's one of the big issues in this argument, is that we shouldn't be choosing between, you know, right now versus later. We need to be working on managing both, because currently things are bad, right? Like a bad winter with not enough energy, and in the future, rising temperatures, you know, rising oceans, that will also be bad as well.
Building wind turbines, on the other hand, does actually produce a huge amount of CO2 to smelt and manufacture the humongous steel bodies and aluminium blades.
Let's take these one by one. Yes, wind turbines are being built from metals. So are gas turbines, so are fossil fuel vehicles. Everything is built from metals. You need to look at the overall low carbon footprint, and it's much lower over the life of a wind turbine, much lower the life of a wind turbine than over the life of a natural gas turbine.
The issue is that a low carbon footprint is just about the only benefit of wind turbines. They kill endangered species of birds quicker than the Duke of Wellington on New Year's Day.
Yes, wind turbines do kill birds. You know what else kills birds? Buildings kill birds. Cats kill birds.
Wind turbines aren't even on the top 3 list of most harmful to bird population.
There are numerous wind studies. When there is a wind turbine placed, there are environmental impact assessment studies that study the migratory patterns of birds and try to realize how many birds will be in danger in that particular zone. This is very much a big part of the permitting process. So if we want to talk about wind turbines killing birds, we should also talk about natural gas turbines killing birds.
Nuclear power plants produce energy 24/7, 365 days of the year. Wind turbines don't have a large turbine to rely on if it fails. It just stops producing power instantaneously. Wind farms only return 2.5 watts per square meter. Compare that to nuclear, which produces 1,000 watts per square meter, and it's clear how inefficient renewables are when it comes to land usage. By destroying huge swathes of nature to build renewables, aren't we destroying the very natural world that renewables are intended to save?
Okay, so many things to say on this. On one phase, just he is juxtaposing renewables against nuclear power, and it turns out actually nuclear power does not emit CO2, so actually the vast majority of people who are for clean green energy are actually for nuclear power. So he's set up a straw man of something that in theory the left green people hate, whereas actually if you do polls today, the vast majority of people who want clean green things actually are fine with nuclear power.
I think delineating between nuclear, wind, and solar isn't really the right way to approach clean energy, because they solve fundamentally different things. One is stable, like base load capacity, and the other one is more intermittent renewables. And I think you need a combination of both to really get to 100% renewable on the grid. But like, you can't just say one's good and one's bad. It's not the right way to phrase the conversation.
Let's just pretend he was talking against, say, coal power. The straw man that he's putting up that, say, wind farms take a lot of space and therefore are bad for the environment, this is really an orders of magnitude thing, where you can say, yes, technically they are bad for the environment, but are they worse for the environment than the alternative? And if the alternative is, say, coal power, where just in terms of, say, asthma to humans, you're talking hundreds of billions of dollars, when you really truly take into account the total cost of electricity coming out of fossil fuel type power sources, they might be cheap on a per kilowatt hour basis just for the electricity, but then you stack on top of it all of the health problems and all of the societal problems and all of the environmental problems, and the total cost of that electricity when you take into account those externalities ends up being in the 30 to 40 to 50 cents per kilowatt hour range, which is far more expensive than any renewable energy out there, regardless of how often that energy is being made, only when the sun shines or only when the wind blows.
It is true that nuclear power, it is the most energy dense way to produce electricity. The problem is that A, we don't have a safe or sustainable way to dispose of nuclear fuel. Number two, there's still a human error or natural disaster factor, such as, guess what, earthquakes, tsunamis that we've known what caused in Fukushima. And these things will happen again and again. There are catastrophic earthquakes, and unfortunately humans are not very good at predicting events that happen once in 50 years, once in 100 years. Third, the risk of conflict, as we just seen in Ukraine, further exacerbates the issue of nuclear power that can be used as a weapon of mass destruction. So I would love for nuclear power plant to work. For it to be cost effective, you would have to ignore some of the ridiculous safety issues that are happening right now. Everybody wants to make nuclear power work. I'm not sure we will be able to.
So if everyone switches to EVs, what happens to the grid?
I'm really alarmed at sort of the naivete of those who are promoting rapid adoption of these technologies with our existing infrastructure. Over the course of a year, an American household would use 25 times as much electricity for their electric car as they would for their refrigerator. It would take 4 times as much electricity to charge the average household's cars as the average household uses on air conditioning.
Lowering your standard of living and your expectations for the future, they're inflicting this necessary pain on you. They believe it's necessary. It's a sacrifice you should make.
Like, why wouldn't you want to electrify things? It's like, yes, it's gonna require more power to the grid, but why wouldn't we want to build a more resilient grid for better products? If I told you, like, oh, here's a phone and it's powered by gas. Like, here's a phone and yeah, you have a rip cord on your phone. Your phone is powered by gas, and here's an electric phone. It's like, you shouldn't use the electric phone because it's going to require more power from the grid. It's like, that's dumb.
There is nothing, absolutely zero nothing, in today's weather or climate that is anywhere near out of line with the last 10,000 years in this interglacial period since the ice caps melted. The idea that CO2 is the main driver of climate change and global warming is the centerpiece.
Right.
And that is false.
Okay, this is just bad science, because I've read like the opposition, and most of the climate scientists out there can follow the natural kind of history and kind of the change in the atmosphere.
I don't know why I should be arguing with facts that have been scientifically proven over and over. Just because one person says something radical, it doesn't mean that it makes it right.
9 out of 10 dentists recommend Colgate toothpaste, but what is that 10th dentist doing?
Global warming is a real thing. If you don't believe in greenhouse effect, you shouldn't grow tomatoes in a greenhouse, period.
The fact is that at about 420 parts per million, the CO2 level at the moment is the highest that has been since roughly the Cretaceous period. So we're talking, 200-ish million years ago.
And what he's saying here is a very, very small portion, a minority of the whole scientific community, and it's just not backed, frankly.
The vast majority of the world, meaning 99.99999% of scientists, think it's CO2. But it's cool. Let's trust this one guy who doesn't think it's that. This past week, California had temperatures that were the hottest that they've pretty much ever been on a monthly basis. We've got a drought that is the worst in 1,200 years.
Flooding in Pakistan now, I think, a third of the country is underwater. So it's again a lot more visceral and real than just, numbers on a paper or a spreadsheet.
There is no possibility that any substance in that small a quantity, 0.04% of the atmosphere, could be the controlling factor of the whole global climate.
Yes, CO2 in that quantity, together with water vapor, is controlling the climate due to the well-known phenomenon of greenhouse effect. It traps the heat in the atmosphere. It is that simple. Making up a different science doesn't make this right.
Have you all noticed that food has become much more expensive? That energy is more expensive? That many
Energy is not more expensive. I think a lot of the renewables are cheaper than fossil fuel alternatives nowadays.
How much short-term pain are you going to be required to sustain? Decades worth? All your life and the life of your children? It's very likely for your own benefit.
Doesn't Jordan Peterson have a book called 12 habits of successful people or something?
Yeah.
Yeah, wait, what is it? I knew this would be one of the rules. Ready? Rule number 3, he says, acknowledge that life is suffering. Your goal is to make progress to avoid suffering. So I'm just gonna quote his book. One of the ways we will avoid suffering in the future is by addressing climate change.
We will not advance without resistance through the straits of your enforced privation. We will not allow you to steal and destroy the energy that makes our lives bearable and that produces our food and shelter and housing and the sporadic delights of modern life just to address your existential terror, particularly when it will fail to do so in any case.
Honestly, I'm quite impressed. He used a lot of big words, and if you just passively listen, it sounds smart, but it doesn't make sense, right? I mean, right now Europe is kind of going through a lot of different things, and it's complicated, and you can't just say it's because of renewables or it's because of climate change causing gas prices to go up. No, it's not. I mean, the UK might not have enough fuel this winter to get them through, and that's not because of renewables. If anything, renewables would help. It's because of bad planning, it's because of the war, it's because of so many other things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's not futile. I mean, if it is, then what are we doing here?
Yeah.
So, well.
Cool. That's it. Thanks, you guys.
Cool.
Thank you.
Yeah.
How do we look?
I'm sitting on the hot seat.
Yeah, very hot seat. Oh my gosh.
Thank you.